Hi ADHDers, this is Rach Idowu, aka Adulting ADHD. Now let's talk about neurodiversity in the workplace. I'm going to briefly touch on what is your why, how to make the workplace more inclusive for neurodivergent people. 3 things: normalizing, embracing, and checking your biases. I'm going to briefly touch on setting up a neurodiversity employee resource group, providing accommodations for people who are neurodivergent, and intersectionality. When we speak about neurodivergent, there is not a one size fits all. Every neurodivergent person is different from another. So whether it's ADHD, autism, Tourette's, dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, PPD, OCD, bipolar, but the one thing we do share are traits. Firstly, why? Why do you want to talk about neurodiversity in the workplace? Why do you want to make the workplace more inclusive for neurodivergent individuals? Why? What is your why? The reason why I ask this is because if you don't have a why in life, you're not really going to be certain on the purpose, what direction you want to go in, why it's important, not just to you, but to the whole of the organization. And when we speak about wanting to make the workplace more inclusive for neurodivergent individuals, you are going to need a why as an organization. Why? Why do you like this person? Why did you apply for that job? Why do you want to buy this particular car? Why? In life, we have a why in so many different areas, and it shouldn't be different when we're thinking about neurodiversity in the workplace, because it's not going to be simple. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a change of mindset, a change of organizational culture, and that's a good thing, right? But having a why, writing it down, enables you to drive the process forward, bring others along with you, and to really shape your organization in a way that's inviting and inclusive of people who are neurodivergent. So first step, I believe, is thinking of your why and writing it down. A good example of why is that we want an organization that embraces divergent thinking, that accepts people with different mindsets, different thoughts, to enrich the conversations and to probably challenge us all in a way that we haven't really thought about. A lot of times in an organization can be a culture where everyone falls into line, or we've always done this way, so we're not going to change it. And you have someone who may approach things differently. It's important that we embrace that. Another why is, if you genuinely want to make your company a great place to work, which is what all companies say, one way is being inclusive of people from all walks of lives. I want to work for a company that genuinely cares about all of their employees, really want to ensure that the employees who work in the organization feel like they're best supported and have the tools and accommodations needed. Those are some reasons why. What are your reasons? Write them down, and once you have them written down, the next step is communicating that across the organization, because getting that down at the outset will enable you to engage people and bring people along the journey with you. You want to get people invested because it's something important to care about. And when you have a strong message that comes from your why, you will have less people in the organization saying, why does it matter? Oh, giving neurodivergent people accommodations, that's special treatment. No, everybody has a stake in the ground, and everyone really pitches in as an organization and is really invested in such an important issue. So that's why you need a why. Okay, so here are 3 things that I think is very important when you're thinking about how to make the workplace more inclusive of neurodivergent people. Normalizing, embracing, and checking your biases. I'm going to repeat these things: normalizing, embracing, and checking your biases. So these 3, let's say, headings fall into the how. I'm going to explain them, which is going to touch on, okay, so what should you do and what could you do to make the workplace inclusive of neurodivergent people? So let's start with normalizing. Here's why normalizing is important in the workplace. Many people have never heard the term neurodiversity before, may have never met anyone who is neurodivergent, and there are many people who are neurodivergent in the workplace. And so the more we have conversations, the more we raise awareness, there is a hope that it helps to destigmatize neurodivergence. That's normalizing. And so that's the what. There are a few things that you can do to normalize neurodivergence in the workplace. have external speakers come in to speak to the company, have someone deliver workplace training. If you are an organization that has an intranet, having a dedicated place on neurodiversity and with some resources would be helpful. And then also open it up to people in the workplace if they want to do, let's say, a blog or a blurb about being neurodivergent in the workplace and what their experience is like. In the organizations I've worked in, I've seen that and I felt really encouraged. And then finally, setting up a neurodiversity employee resource group. So I'm going to run through some of them and I won't explain in much detail, but on the topic of having external speakers, which is something I do and I know many people in the community do, if this is something you deliver, I'm speaking to you, it's very important for you to do research on the company. Because the advice, I've worked in so many different organizations, both public and private, the pressures are going to be different, the setup is going to be different. And so there are some aspects of the advice and the practical tips that can be tailored to the organization. So it's really effective. And if you're struggling with that, if you're the person you're liaising with, I would personally ask them so many different questions about the organization so I can deliver a talk that is really impactful and people can take something away from that they found very relevant to what it's like in a company. And I say this because you're going to have people who are neurodivergent who are going to understand and say, yes, this is for me. And then you're going to have people who are hearing all of this for the very first time and you want it to land. You want to make an impact, whether you give a 30-minute talk, an hour talk, a day training, so they can take it away and not only learn more about neurodiversity, but so that they can be allies in the workplace and really be invested in such an important issue. The next thing I'm going to briefly touch on is setting up a neurodiversity employee resource group. A lot of companies already have employee resource groups set up, and many companies that I've been speaking to are now starting to develop and set up a neurodiversity specific network, which I think is amazing. And this enables people who are neurodivergent to have a space to share resources, experiences and advice on how they've navigated the workplace, whether it be things that they found helpful, tools, things that access to work that some people may not know about, and also an avenue to see where policies and be changed or developed to enable that neurodivergent people are supported and are in a position where they can, thrive and have the tools necessary to do their job. The probably most important thing I'm going to say in this topic is that when a neurodiversity network is set up, and I would say this with a lot of employee resource groups, whether it's FAIF, DEI, is that it's really important to have a sponsor, and a sponsor that's in the senior management team, the exec, or someone with authority to communicate proposals to the higher managers and to really drive raising awareness about neurodiversity in the workplace and any policy change that's going to come with that. The reason that's important is that change isn't going to happen overnight. And I find that in a lot of organizations, especially ones that I've worked in, when someone senior says something or when someone senior proposes it, people listen. People at least consider it. And I think when you have an important area like neurodiversity in the workplace, it's really important to have a sponsor who may be neurodivergent or who may not be, to help drive forward, the aims of the network. So I'm going to leave that there. So that's normalizing. Remember, I said I'm going to speak about normalizing, embracing, and checking your biases if you were listening. So now we're going to go on to embracing. I don't know about you, but when I join a group, a club, or an organization, I want to feel like I belong. I want to feel like I'm included. I want to feel like I'm supported. I want to feel like this place cares about me. Is that just me? And so when we speak about how to make the workplace more inclusive of neurodivergent people, it's embracing us in so many different ways. And so I'm going to run through embracing neurodivergent thinking, providing accommodations for people who are neurodivergent, and embracing awareness days. And starting with embracing divergent thinking. I feel like in many workplaces there is a certain way to do certain things. There are unspoken norms, unspoken rules in a workplace that people tend not to deviate from because, we can be stuck in our ways. However, with many people who are neurodivergent, like myself, I really love problem solving. And oftentimes I'm able to get to an outcome in a way that other people typically aren't. Allowing space for new ideas, different ways of doing things, being open to challenge, enables people, especially those who are neurodivergent, to feel like we can contribute and propose solutions and ideas. So ultimately will help the organization when there's fresh ideas, innovative thinking, doing something different than, others, probably their competitors are doing. And this again comes with embracing. Next thing I'm going to speak about is accommodations, also known as reasonable adjustments. And in some countries, this is codified in laws that employees must provide reasonable adjustments for disabled people. What accommodation should be providing as an organization? What accommodation should I ask for as someone who is neurodivergent? And if I'm honest, I feel like we don't say this enough. It depends. And I think a lot of this is very specific to the workplace, the role you're doing, and also the country you're in. But I'm going to run through some of the things you could think about and some, general accommodations that people tend to ask for. I'm going to talk about the interview stage and also for employees in the workplace. At the interview stage, and this is the stage where people don't tend to think about, you really have to think about hiring practices and interview techniques when you are interviewing someone who is neurodivergent. I'm going to give you an example. When it comes to eye contact, right? Been in workplaces that says if a candidate isn't giving you eye contact, they're not engaged, they're probably not the right fit for the role, which is absolutely ridiculous. And I think it's important that's something we do away with, because at the end of the day, you want the best person for the job. You want someone who is going to be able to deliver, who's going to learn and also bring value to the team. And how are you going to judge that based on eye contact? You have already counted them out before they've even started. And that's one barrier that people who are neurodivergent face in the workplace. Another one that's quite specific, somewhere I worked, they knew I had ADHD and they had asked me for some advice, right? Somebody had asked them ahead of the interview if they can send them the interview questions because they have ADHD, and so that, enables them to, prepare. And this person said, hey, you have ADHD and you've applied for roles and haven't asked me for the questions before, or the organization for the questions before. Is this something that they really need, or are they just essentially trying their luck? I had to stop them and point out that there isn't a one size fits all when it comes to ADHD. The things I struggle with, the things I thrive in, is going to be very different to the other person. And I said, yes, they may need some time to process, to plan out their answers. And you're going to find that the candidate's going to be much better prepared, very well rounded, and you're going to make use of everyone's time when they're able to deliver and they're able to answer the interview questions because you've given them it beforehand. You've got to remember, it's not a test. You want to have a feel of the candidate's knowledge, their engagement, their skills, and the interest in the company. And we shouldn't look at it like a test and throw hurdles out for people who are interested in joining the organization, because that's how you're going to miss out on some incredible neurodivergent people. So I was looking at for some of these different things. There is a disability confidence scheme. If someone who is disabled ticks the box and applies, if they meet the minimum threshold, they're going to be given an interview. And I think that's amazing, and more employers should do that. These are examples of the accommodations you could provide at interview stage. And some people might ask for extra time if it's like a timed assessment. Okay, I'm going to really quickly run through some of the accommodations people might ask for in the workplace. So there's access to work, which enables people who are disabled to be funding for support. So let's say an ADHD coach. Some people might ask for a fixed desk because hot desking really disrupts the flow and makes it difficult for them to work in an environment where they're moving around anytime they come in. Third thing is someone might ask for headphones or headsets, and it might not be asking the employer to buy it. It might just be, hey, I don't want to get distracted, so sometimes I might put my earplugs in. I'm not being rude, I'm not being antisocial. I love this job, but this is what I need enable for me to deliver. Another thing is I find really helpful is starting meetings 5 past the hour. So if I'm back to back during the day, I have that 5 minutes in to have a breather, also have a quick coffee. Another thing people might ask for is compressed hours. I'm lucky enough to have worked in places that have this thing called a 9-day fortnight, where you work an extra 30 or 45 minutes a day for 9 days and you get the Friday off. That works really well for me. Again, there's quite a few things. It's very specific to an organization. And when I speak to companies and people who are in the workplace and want advice from me, I tend to ask them, what's their workplace like, what they would find helpful. And I think that's something you can do as an organization, speaking to direct reports, maybe doing a blind survey and asking what accommodations people would find helpful, because it's very specific. Just going to pause there, and I hope this is really helpful. You are learning a lot. Again, this is a quick whistle stop tour on how to make the workplace more inclusive for neurodivergent people, but I think it's important that it can give you a little bit to think about and hopefully to act on. So remember, we're on the how and what. I spoke about normalizing, embracing, and the third and final thing I'm going to speak about is checking your biases. Yes, we all have them. Some of us are ignorant. Okay, we acknowledge that. But we can learn and we can change and we can improve, and that's the beauty of it. The first thing is assumptions. Now, what did they say about making assumptions? You make a yes out of yourself. Great. And so this is really important if, let's say, you are a manager and you are managing someone who may be neurodivergent, so they could have OCD, ADHD, dyspraxia, autism. What helped me is my managers in the past asking me, could you explain this a little bit to me? How does this impact you in the workplace? What does this mean for you? Ask questions. For me, I always value people asking questions. Then people making assumptions are, incorrect and can be quite harmful to the individual. Again, I recognize it's a learning experience for many people. And it's okay to ask questions. Everyone is different. Everyone's experience in the workplace is different. And it's important to, hear people out in the workplace. And one way that could be done en masse is having blind surveys or temperature checks. So this is like sending out a Google form, which is anonymous, and asking people how they're feeling today, if they're neurodivergent and they have any feedback on how, the workplace can be improved or things that could, be changed or implemented. That helps, especially if you're scratching your head thinking about what to do, how to help. There's no harm in asking. And if a form is anonymous, this enables people to feel comfortable to share their views, their tips, or the issues that they are facing. Trying to see what can be done, not knocking down ideas, and working with people and collaborating. And I think this is really important if, let's say, you're neurodivergent and you have joined a neurodiversity network. Even amongst ourselves, we're very different. Like I said earlier on, it's really important that we hear each other out, we collaborate, and we try to make sure that policies, changes, proposals works for the betterment of all of us, not just a few people. And if you're in a workplace and you're doing great and you don't struggle with anything and you're neurodivergent, that is fantastic. But don't undermine the people who are struggling by saying, I have ADHD, I don't struggle with that, I don't think that's necessary. Because, that's one, a form of internalized ableism, and two, that's making things difficult for somebody else who is also neurodivergent. And finally, I can't close without speaking about intersectionality, which is very important. I'm a black woman who is neurodivergent and having to face the barrier of being black, a woman from a working class background, and being neurodivergent. On top of that, many competing barriers, and I will have different challenges in a workplace. And so when we speak about inclusion, it's common for people who are neurodivergent, who are ethnic minority, who are from a working class background, to feel excluded, to feeling like we don't fit in. So when we speak about the inclusion aspect, I think it's very important to recognize and really put intersectionality at the forefront of any changes policies were adopted. And also, if you are neurodivergent and you're delivering workplace training or delivering a talk, very important to touch on intersectionality, because I feel like a lot of times that's usually left out of the conversation. I hope this has been helpful. It's been very brief. I'm Rachel Dobu. I have ADHD combined type. I speak about ADHD, neurodiversity in the workplace and at conferences. And if you are interested to learn a bit more, I'm available to book. Here is my email and the website. Feel free to get in touch with me. I can deliver in person and online talks or trainings. But yeah, I really hope this has really led you to think about why neurodiversity in the workplace is important. And now you can have these lunch and learns with people coming in, you can have these workshops, but awareness for me is only effective when it destigmatizes neurodivergence. It brings about systemic change that enables people who are not neurodivergent to thrive in a workplace, to feel supported and included. So yes, there's an awareness aspect, raising awareness, but it should bring about change. I've given you some practical tips to take away. Again, here is my email. Feel free to reach out. I'm available for bookings. And that's all from me.